CourseFactor is a full-service affordable web design company located in central Pennsylvania. Our shared and dedicated hosting options, which are powered by Amazon Web Services, start at just $48 per year. Our hosting offers unmatched scalability, reliability, and support. Our SEO and digital marketing campaigns include a ranking improvement guarantee and are custom tailored to fit any budget. Contact us for a free SEO analysis. Your vision is our mission. Customer satisfaction is our main goal. With more than 35 years in business, our customer retention rate exceeds 99%. Your satisfaction is our first priority. Let us help you with your next project. No job is too big or too small. So let's get started. So the reason that we're doing this virtual meetup is to just help out those of you who are new to SEO. Have discussions with those of you who are veteran pros.
Hello?
There we go, Chris. I got you now.
All right, I just had a preference in Skype I had to fix.
Okay.
I knew it was my fault, so.
Perfect.
Sorry.
No, not a problem. I'm glad you're able to join. Perfect. All right. So going on. So so we're just trying to reach out, have a discussion for those of you who are veteran pros, new to the game. I'm just trying to go over some of the SEO basics and then kind of dive into some of the on-page, off-page, some of the techniques that I use personally as an SEO specialist with CourseFactor, and some of the techniques that we use as a team as well. I will say this off the get-go, that SEO is very different for each and every business. There is no there's no 100% this is the right way to do it. It has to be custom tailored to fit your needs and your business's needs. And it's all based on, the customers that you're trying to reach. And it's also based on the product and service that you're selling. So with that, I'll get started. So what is SEO? I'm just going to kind of give a brief overview. It stands for search engine optimization. What that means is it's where your website will appear in the SERPs, which is the search engine results pages, depending on what keywords that people are using to try to search for your product or service. So example, if you're a pressure washing company, you'd want your website to appear in the search results when someone search for pressure washing services or pressure washing company near me or whatever. There's so many different ways that people search, and it's where your website will fall in those rankings. So, and it's not just the rankings on Google, it's the rankings on Yahoo, Bing, DuckDuckGo, etc. For the sake of today, I'm just going to reference those search engines. I'm just going to categorize them all as Google, because it gets about a little over 90% of all the search traffic anyways. So that's typically when I SEO a site, or we typically only, not that we ignore the other search engines, but our main goal is to rank in Google, because if you rank well there, you're pretty much going to rank well across the other ones. Now, when I SEO a site, there's different, like I said, there's different approaches to take, but the biggest thing that you must keep in mind whenever you're starting any type of SEO campaign is the algorithms that are behind these search engines. And understanding those as much as you possibly can. You don't have to know no one knows the exact algorithm, so you can't, so you don't have to know what exactly the algorithm is, but you have to know that what their goal is, and keep that in mind when you're optimizing your site. And that goal for these search engine pages is to deliver the information that people want in the most efficient way possible. So everything that you do moving forward, you have to keep in mind that Google's only going to send someone to your website, aka appear in their search results, if the experience is good. That is subjective, but there are definitely techniques and things that need to be done to your site to basically, I want to say, conform to those standards that Google set. And we'll go over those. Now, one thing I did fail to mention, SEO doesn't just apply to search engines. It also does apply to social media pages. Take Facebook, Pinterest, YouTube, etc. So if you have, if you sell jewelry, for example, Pinterest might be a great website for you to SEO on, because there's a lot of that type of market on Pinterest. If you're a photographer, Instagram, you want to be found for it's basically things that you do to your site that keep you shown in the spotlight when people search. So as I mentioned, keeping the what Google wants to send their users to in mind. They keep you shown in the spotlight. We keep that. People search. Looks like. So as I mentioned, keeping the what Google wants to send their users to in mind. They keep you shown in the spotlight. We keep that. Okay. Sorry, I was mirroring there for a second. So yeah, that's what that means. With that said, there is a term that us SEO specialists like to use, and that's called a holistic approach when we're optimizing sites. Holistic, all that means is that you're going to be keeping the end user in mind, and not just optimizing a website to play the game of the search engines. So if you only optimize your website for the search engines, that's not a holistic approach, because you're completely ignoring the end user, the people that are actually going to be using your site in mind. And Google doesn't like to see that, and the same with the others. So with that said, there are two separations when it comes to SEO, and those two separations are on-page SEO and off-page SEO. On-page is the things that are actually done to your website, whether it be technical aspects or actual content. For example, government and municipal website design. And the second aspect is going to be off-page SEO. So off-page SEO is things that you do, obviously off your website, that will get people directed to your site. So appearing in a press release, or having good reviews on your business page and your business listings throughout Yelp, TripAdvisor, Google, etc. Backlinks that are pointing to your website, etc. There's a lot of different techniques when it comes to off-page. I'm only going to touch on a few when I get to that, but I first want to address the on-page SEO. So for on-page, like I was saying earlier, there's kind of, that can be split into two as well. There's the technical aspect, and then there's the front-end aspect. The technical aspect is making sure that your website performs well, so that when the user gets to it, they're able to get to where they need quickly. They're able to navigate your website quickly and securely, in addition to the speed at which they're able to navigate your site. And also, there's a couple things that need to be done to help the search engines actually search through your website and index it. And that kind of falls in the technical aspect as well. So the first thing I kind of want to talk about there is, and I did mention this already, it was speed. Google came out with an update, I think it was October of 2018, where they where John Mueller, I think on Twitter he basically said, the gist of it was, the faster your website is, the higher that you will appear in the search engine results. To a degree. Obviously, there's a ton of other aspects of the algorithm, but that's kind of the basis of it. And there's a ton of different ways that you can make your website faster. One of the very most basic one is your actual hosting plan. What what hosting are you with? Are you with a fast server, slow server, etc.? Shop around. Make sure that you're getting on a. If you are doing what's called shared hosting, which is what 95, probably more than that, which is what most of the internet is on, is shared hosting. All that means that you're sharing resources with different websites on that same server. Make sure that whatever hosting company you decide to go with, they're not overloading the servers. It's a practice, unfortunately, among hosting companies to put thousands of websites on a single server. And you're all going to be drawing those resources at the same time, which can ultimately slow your site down. So just shop around, make sure that you're choosing the right one. I will plug myself here a little bit in Course Vector because we are the sponsor of this WordPress Meetup tonight, and saying that we do offer hosting services, so definitely check us out. We start at just $48 a year, so I'll end the plug there. So that's with speed. With speed, also images are a huge factor when it comes to speed and how your site is delivered. For example, if you notice the background image here, obviously it appears to be a larger image. With this background image though being as large as it is on my screen, we decided, because it is just a background, you can kind of see that it's blurry, and that's fine. Because it's a background, it's not the focal point we want this text to be. So instead of having a super high resolution image in the background, because it's not the focal point, we decided to go for a lower resolution to trade off to get faster speeds for our site. When you're uploading images, especially on WordPress, there is very simple. If you're using the Gutenberg editor, you can usually select between a large, full, medium thumbnail image. I always suggest to go with the smallest that you can get away with, and stretching that image out. Obviously, you don't want to sacrifice the user experience of delivering a blurry image, especially if you're a photographer, for example. I know Chris is here, who's joined with me on Skype, who definitely needs to deliver his high resolution stuff. But some practice for him might be, for example, is instead to deliver thumbnails, smaller images, and people can click on them instead, and then load that large image so they can actually see the quality work that he does put out. I'm going to keep going on this page. You can see how it's image heavy. It kind of an example of what I was just talking about for Chris. You can click on these and then see the high resolution. So you're not loading all these high res images. That's one way to improve speed. Other ways are to actually take a look at the caching that's on your website. With all of us being WordPress users here, there's a ton of different caching plugins that you can use. One of our favorites that we like to use is W3 Total Cache. But like I said, there's a lot of different ones out there. Delivering your images via CDN, which is a cloud delivery network. That's another way to increase your speed. I'm just trying to think of other ones off the top of my head. The actual theme that you're using. Some of the more popular WordPress themes out there are page builders, which makes it very easy to edit your website. However, some of them can be very code heavy, so you have to be careful there with what you're using. So Emily asked in the Facebook chat, what was that caching? So caching is essentially, in the easiest way to put it, it's preloading your website before somebody gets there. And there's different plugins that you can use to do so. Most of them are just a one-click install. Go through a couple steps and you're off to the races. The one that I personally like to use, and we use here at Course Vector, is W3 Total Cache. But there's a bunch of them out there. WPMU Dev. They have Hummingbird. Those are the two I know offhand. Like I said, we stick with the W3 total cache. It's worked great for us for the past, I think, 4 or 5 years. So we haven't had a need to go search elsewhere. We have tested other ones, but none of them that come close to what that is. So Emily, I'm gonna put that 3. I put that in the chat for you. The name of that plugin. Yeah, and as Mike said, it's compression. It's compression of the website, essentially. Other ways to do. So I'll continue on with other ways to increase your speed. Compressing code, auto optimize is another plugin that you can use. Async, I think it's async JavaScript. That helps compress your JavaScript code. Like I said, there's a bunch of them out there, but I will say this before you start going in and installing all these plugins and being like, oh, well, I'm going to make my site super fast. You have to be very careful because some of them don't, some plugins, and I'm sure some of you have come across this already, some plugins don't play nice with each other, essentially. And
Hey,
some
Josh,
plugins, yes.
is there a site to go in to test our speed, like
Yes, there is,
on
actually.
site?
I'll pull it up on the, so DT Metrics is the one that we use. There's another site called PageSpeed Insights, which is run by Google, and they'll give you things that you can do to your site to help improve it. And there's also webpagetest.org. This one, though, as of recently, we were getting some really funky results. 1 second it was showing a 2-second load time. Other times it was showing a 22-second load time with tests like run back to back. So we stopped using this one for a while and switched over to GT Metrics maybe about 3-4 months ago. I don't know if they fixed it since, so just something to keep in mind when using this one. Like I said, we use GT Metrics. I'll actually run this site through it real quick here for you so you can see what it does. I'll let that run. There you go. So obviously right here, I was talking about the images. That's something that I can improve. But it gives you what is wrong with your site and areas that you can improve on. So obviously I need to look into that. I'm going to make a note of that right now for myself to go back in and check. And that's your page speed, and then you also have your Y-slow. So this is, again, using a content delivery network. Usually those are paid. You have to check with your host and see what type of services they offer. With our managed server, or managed hosting plan, we actually include a free image CDN currently, which we just added not too long ago. And then you also have your waterfall, which is a really, really interesting aspect that you can also check with speeds. You can actually see exactly what elements of your site are taking forever to load. So, for example, if you had a super high resolution image, it would show up here, and it would show you how long it's taking to load compared to some of the other images and things on your site. And you can break these down. I do suggest actually setting up an account with GT Metrics. It is free, and each time you run a report, it actually saves it, and you can cross-reference it again if you need to in the future. There's no cost to join this site either. I've really been enjoying it the past 3 months. I've been using it since we switched over. So that's speed. I could keep going on there. Like I said, there's a lot more that goes into it than just that. But typically, yes, Emily, how fast do you want your site to go? As fast as you possibly can. That was Emily's question from Facebook, by the way. As fast as you can. Like Mike mentioned, less than 3 seconds is ideal. Also, something to consider is, I'm going to go back to here. and I'm going to review this report. Like I said, you can review it. And actually, I'm going to run it via PageSpeed Insights as well, just so you can see this as well. You also have to keep in mind that the way Google has been indexing websites now is that they are indexing websites mobile first. That's how you're going to appear in the rankings. It's how your website performs via mobile. And you can, on the PageSpeed Insights, you can compare mobile compared to desktop. So obviously we're killing it here in desktop, but because Google doesn't index your desktop sites anymore. They're mobile first indexing. This is the speed. This is the score that essentially that's going to be marked down for this site for indexing. And you can again see here areas that I can improve. So it looks like, yeah, it looks like the images again are what's killing me here. So I'm definitely going to make a note of that and revisit this site, and we'll see what I can do there. And there's a bunch of different image optimization plugins that you can use as well. We personally use Smush. That's the one that we like to use because it does come with a image CDN. That is a paid plugin. That does come with some of our plans. But there are free ones out there. EWWW, image compression, that's another great one. We used that one for a while. Those are two offhand. Like I said, I'm going to pretty much when I recommend a plugin, I'm going to give you a couple of choices here, but do your research because there's going to be more than two that are out there for pretty much every plugin that I recommend here. Do your research, find out where it works best for you. It's kind of like the App Store, for an iPhone. There's an app for that. There's a plugin for that as well. So do your research, find out what works best for your website. Do A/B testing. You have the tools available to you to check. Run it through GT metrics. Disable one plugin, enable another one. But like I said before too, plugins don't play nice with each other, so make sure you have a backup of your site before you do anything. That's always recommended. All right, so continuing on my technical list, speed was one of them. I'm going to jump into let's go with the security. And this is pretty simple. It's just HTTPS versus HTTP. Again, going back to what I said at the very beginning of this video, you have to think of what Google wants to send their users to. Do they want to send them to a secure site or an unsecure site? So obviously they want to send their users to a secure site. So having an SSL certificate installed correctly and configured correctly on your website is definitely helps with the rankings. We've seen a major improvement when that's the only thing that we do it in the site when we track our rankings. So I can go in there further if anyone has any questions, but it's pretty self-explanatory on that one, I think. Check your hosting plans. A SSL certificate shouldn't cost anything yearly. It should be free because you can obtain them free. But just make sure that your hosting company is, if you're not installing it yourself, make sure that they're installing it and configuring it correctly. There are tools that you can use. I'm going to pull up one of them that you can run your website through to make sure that it is HTTPS compliant. And this is this SSL check by jitbit.com. And this will crawl your website and make sure that all your pages are HTTPS compliant. And it will also let you know if there's any pages that aren't and what you need to do to fix them. And I'll put this link in the Facebook chat as well. And I won't forget about you over here, Chris. I'll put it in the Skype chat too. So we can get rid of these. All right, what's next on my list here? All right, let's go into sitemaps and robots.txt. So, and I'll touch on schema as well. So with the technical aspects of your site, there are certain things that you can do that will help search engines crawl your site easier, as well as explain to those search engines that are crawling your site what your website is about. And that's where the sitemap, robots, and schema all come into play. So I will go over robots.txt first, because that's the very, very first thing that when a crawler hits your website, that's the first thing that it's going to look for, is what's called the robots.txt file. And you'll know if you have that by going to your website and just typing in robots.txt. What this file does is it's essentially the secretary of the building for your website. So when a crawler comes into your building, your secretary is going to say, all right, this is where you need to go, crawler. And it'll point them to the sitemap. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant. It'll also tell, you can add more information to this. So if you want certain page not crawled, you can tell the crawler, hey, don't go here. But for the most part, that's not a good practice for SEO. You want the crawlers to be able to see pretty much everything. So, but you always want to point them to your sitemap, which I'll go to next. So I'm going to copy and paste that. We're just going to kind of follow how the crawler is going to go on your website. And we have what's called an XML file for the sitemap set up here. What this is it is a listing of all the URLs on your website. Obviously, this site is pretty small. I'll go to our main website and let you know what that one looks like. You can see here there's a lot more going on, just because it's a much larger site than the other one. But what this does is it tells the crawler, okay, this is when it was last, it tells information that the crawler wants to know. There's ways that you can manually create these sitemaps. Would not recommend it at all, especially being on WordPress. There's way too many plugins out there that'll do it, and I will recommend some of those right now, and that's Yoast will create them automatically. That's an SEO plugin as well, so you can kind of hit two birds with one stone there. The SEO framework, again, same thing as Yoast. That's a SEO plugin, and that'll also create sitemaps for you. So again, two birds. And then the last one, which is really a simple one, which is what we have here, is the Google XML sitemap, and that's another plugin that you can use. So there's a bunch of different options out there, and that's just scratching the surface. Again, find out which one works best for you, and do some I guess you can't really do A/B testing unless you have unless you're actually tracking your ranks. So that's the sitemaps, and then the last thing I want to talk about is for code for your website is going to be schema. Now I'm going to actually go to the schema website here. Believe it or not, schema is a joint effort collaboration of Yahoo, Bing, Google. They all came together on something, believe it or not, and to create this. And what schema is it's essentially it's code that lives on your site that will explain to the crawlers what your website actually is about. I'll use this example here. Let's say you're a real estate agent, and you have a blog post on your website about how great it is to live next door to a burger joint, because you're selling a house that's next door to a burger joint. So you're kind of trying to be found for this house that lives next to a burger joint. So you write this great article about how great it is to live next to a burger joint. And if a crawler hits that without any explanation, they might think that your website is not about real estate, but it might be about a food blog. And that's where you need to have schema to actually explain, no, my website's about real estate. Because a AI is only so smart. It can only, well, for now, that's a whole argument. That's a whole discussion in itself. But AI is only so smart. It can only determine certain things on a site based on what's on that website. And obviously, if a human went to website, that page, it'd be like, okay, yeah, this would be great to live next to a burger joint. We as humans can differentiate between the differences there. Schema helps with that. There's specific code, and there's a ton of different schemas out there that will help explain to the crawlers when they come across your website what your site is about. It'll also let you explain to Google that CourseVector.com is the same as Facebook.com/CourseVector. It's one and the same. We're the same company. Same things are going on. It also explains if you have certain people. For example, Mike Vanling, he's our CEO, who's actually in the chat with us on Facebook. He's a well-known figure in the Harrisburg area because he's installed everything from fiber optics in a bunch of different buildings. He's owned computer stores in this area, etc. So he's a well-known figure, so we'd like to put his name associated with our website. Because if people ever search his name, our site should come up because we have that schema in the back end of our site. Authors, that's very important to have. If you're a well-known photographer, that might be something you want to introduce. If you photograph well-known models, you might want to put that person schema on your photography site, for example. Like I said, there's a bunch of different ways, or there's a bunch of different schemas out there. The more schema that you have to explain to a crawler what your site is about, the better. But don't go overkill. Don't say that your site is about, these 50 million different things, because, again, that'll confuse the search engine just as much as the content did. So, something to keep in mind there. There are plugins to add schema. So Emily asked in the Facebook chat, where do we put the schemas? There's a few different places. Like I just said, there is plugins that you can use to insert schema across your sites. We use one called Schema Pro. That is paid. I don't think there's any. We did a lot of research when we started adding schemas to our site. We were doing it manually, which you can do so. If you do it manually, you'll put it in the content of your site. It won't appear because it's code to the front end user, but it'll still be there in the page source so the crawlers can hit it. So if you're doing like a blog post, for example, you just put it in the back end. There's different ways to write it. You can use JSON, you can do it inline schema, etc. Plugins like Yoast will automatically create some schema for you, like blog post schema. I think they might do local business schema as well, built right in. Trying to think of anything else that they might do on schema. I think they do website schema, which is good to have too. That's about it that I can think of for Yoast, but like I said, there's other different plugins that you can use. I don't think we were happy with any of the free ones that are out there. We ended up using that premium one. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I can add there. Emily, did that help explain it? I know there's a little bit of delay in the Facebook chat compared to the Skype chat. And if you go and navigate through the site, it'll actually tell you how to actually add schema. There's documentation here, and this is all how to add it. It's difficult. Schema is not an easy thing. I will say that. All right, so what else can I do for technicals here? I think I went over most of everything. I got one more thing that I don't want to touch on for technicals, and that's your meta titles and meta descriptions that you have for each of your pages and posts. So what a meta title is and what a meta description is. So I'm just going to search our company here, but I'm not going to search it directly because I want to. A meta title is what you tell the search engine crawlers what you want displayed in the search engine results here. So for example, I'm going to try and find one that's not inundated with ads. Okay. So for example, camphillbarber.com, this is the meta title and this is the meta description. If you do not tell the crawlers what you want those to specifically be, the crawlers will do its best to guess, and that's not always the best thing, because you want to be able to use language that will get somebody to actually click on this link. So for example, this right here, obviously it's very short. There's room, and they are limited. You can only have so many characters because it can't go on to the next line for the title. Same thing with the description. It can only be, I think it's like 78 characters long for a title and 156 or 146 for the description. If you use a tool like Yoast or the SEO framework or all-in-one SEO, when you set those meta titles, it'll let you know if you're going too long or too short. But what you want to do is keep in mind when you're setting these meta titles is to actually use language that will get somebody to actually click on your site. So, Campbell Barbershop, for example, that's great. I know what they are, but it's not the most eye-catching, nor is it the most engaging. Versus one down below. Now, granted, it's Yelp, but the best 10 barbers near Camp Hill. Okay, that might, I might want to click on that more. So you have to use the language that you want your users to, that'll get somebody to click. Think of those meta titles as ads. I mean, essentially, it's ad space that you're not paying for. So if I was this Camp Hill Barbershop, for example, I might put old school. I have no idea what type of products that they offer, what type of services that they offer. But if they're like old school haircuts at a fraction of, at old school prices dash Camp Hill Barbershop, okay, that's going to get me to click on it. It's I can get a quality haircut, that old school type haircut for whatever. That's going to get me. It's engaging to me personally. It's going to reach those people that they're wanting to click on their site. So just keep that in mind when you're writing these meta titles and meta descriptions, is that this is your time to actually write something engaging to actually get somebody to click on your site. And like I was saying, there's different plugins. I guess I'll go into this now. There's different plugins for SEO that'll accomplish this. If you're planning on SEOing your WordPress site, I would highly recommend picking a single SEO plugin. And by single, I mean you need to use other ones, obviously, to make up for caching and things like that, image optimization. But pick a SEO plugin that fits you and what you like best about it, that has appeals to you and has the features that you want the most. For example, the three probably most popular ones out there right now are Yoast, which I've found to be the most user-friendly. It's a little bit heavy on the code, so it might slow your site down a little bit. And they do like to advertise on the back end heavily, so it gets a little bit annoying having to click out of ads just on your WordPress dashboard from them. But like I was saying, they are the most user-friendly I've found to be. They have little bullets that'll tell you how you're optimizing a page, if you're doing well or doing not. There's another all-in-one SEO framework. I can't talk much about that one at all because I haven't used it. I know it's out there and I know a lot of people use it. And the last one that we have been using now recently is the SEO framework. We found it to be very fast, but we've also found it to be built more toward developers, so just kind of bear that in mind. And each of them do different things. You just have to find out which one works best for you, which one works best for your, your customer base, essentially, too. All right, so those are the SEO plugins, and I think that's about it for technical aspects. I'm going to go into the front end aspects now, which those plugins will help out with all that. So that's why I kind of wanted to end the technical and work my way onto the front end. So I will go back to the municipal or the website for Gov site that we have, and I'll talk about the front end. When we do this, we typically say that we're optimizing the page, or the content of the page, and this is where keywords come into play. So I guess before I even get into how to optimize a page, I'll talk a little bit about keywords and choosing the right one to optimize for. For example, I'm just going to tell you quickly on this page, the keyword that we optimize for on this one is municipal website design. Now, the reason that we did that versus government website design is you have to look at a couple different things when you're choosing the keyword that you want to optimize for. You have to think of what your customers are searching for. Not what you're actually calling your product, what your customers are searching for. So, for example, let's say, I'm just going to throw a hypothetical out there. Let's say you're typing in football, you sell footballs on your site, but really they're soccer balls. And you're from Europe, and that's the language that you use is, FUTBOL, when you're talking about footballs. But you come to the States and you're trying to start up your own, football business, and you're trying to sell football. You're never going to get seen in the search engine rankings because no one in the States uses football as that keyword. So you have to conform to what your client, what your customer base is using. For the example, they would have to, if they wanted to rank at all, they'd have to start using soccer balls, or at least be seen in the rankings. They'd have to start using soccer balls. So you just have to find out what language that your customers are using. It doesn't hurt to ask them. Another example is pressure washing and power washing. Those are two that are kind of used interchangeably, and it might, depending on the area that you're trying to reach. I don't know if you're out in California and everyone calls it power washing, versus if you're in Vermont, everyone calls it pressure washing. You have to find out the language that your people are using to optimize for. So that's kind of one big, and then you also have to figure out, is that keyword actually even being searched for? There's tools that you can actually use to do this. We call this keyword research when we're trying to figure out what page or what keywords to use to optimize for. Google. Nope. Sorry. Trending on. Slow down there, Josh. All right, trending on Google. There we go. So I'll go back to that power washing. So I'm doing power washing services, and then on this one I'm going to do pressure washing services, just to see the difference here. So this is interest over time. These are the amount of searches in that time frame. So you can see from May 5th to May 11th, 2019, 44 people searched for this exact keyword. We'll go to that same one. So May 5th to May 11th in 2019, 78 people searched for pressure washing compared to power washing. So clearly more people are searching for pressure washing services. You can also see the interest by subregion. So you can see on the East Coast it's pretty popular there. So I'll just take Missouri here, for example. It looks like if you were in Missouri, it looks like you might want to use power washing compared to pressure washing, because there's not much search going on there. So again, it depends on the type of region and the language that you're using, and that's just one example. I don't know if there's any other keyword that you can use for that, but you get that point. You also have to be careful though, because the amount of competition out there might be stiffer for pressure washing services compared to power washing services. So you have to just take a look at how many actual search results are out there for those two things. So I'm just going to go to Google real quick. And I'm going to copy in those two keywords. And you can see that there are 270 million results compared to 1.9 billion results. So clearly, there's more competition in the pressure washing market compared to power washing market. So you have to take the two in conjunction and say, okay, this one has a lot of people searching for it, but the competition is very tough compared to another keyword where there might be very little people searching for it, but the competition might be very, very easy to rank for. So it's kind of like this balancing game that you have to play to figure out what keyword is best to use. We use a whole bunch of different tools when we do keyword research that kind of run through all this for us, essentially, that give us what we call a keyword effectiveness index. It's called KEI. Or KEI. So we have those tools available to us. Most of them are paid. So you can either pay for those services yourself, or if you need some help there, reach out to us. Be more than happy to run a couple keywords, do that for you. Through some of our tools there for you to kind of help you out and point you in the right direction there. So that's keyword. So once you finally come across, okay, this is the keyword that I want to optimize for. This is where you're going to go through your content and work it. Work it into your content, work it into some of the code on the back end of your content, etc. Yoast is fantastic for this. It'll let you know exactly how many times your keyword appeared in your page. Things that you can do to your page. You enter in your keyword into Yoast, and then it'll run you through, okay, this is the things that you need to do. Any tool that you use for that, you have to take all that with a grain of salt. Because again, like I was saying, circle right back to all the way to the beginning again. You're optimizing for the end. You're optimizing your site for the end user experience, not the search engines. You have to keep that holistic approach in mind when you're doing so. And you have to be careful not to do what's called keyword stuffing, which gets annoying when you're trying to read through content and you're reading the exact same 3 words over and over and over and over again. Which we have it here. We have it here. Again, right here. I mean, you can see that it's throughout our content, but it's not. I think it doesn't even appear down here. It's not overly done. And like I said, lean on those tools hard, the Yoast and SEO framework and all-in-one SEO. Lean on those tools hard when you're working through this. And again, take the recommendations all with a grain of salt. If you know that that's going to end up providing a bad user experience, don't do it. Don't try to make those Yoast bullets all green. It's not needed. I think on some of our best performing posts when we were using Yoast, I think we still had maybe 2 or 3 red bullets. It's just, you just have to make sure that you're optimizing for that end user. So that's on page. And I will say this too with the user experience. It's not just the wording on your site. It's also how easily people are able to navigate your site. Are they able to get to where they need quickly? How many clicks deep is some of the content that you're trying to get them to? A user should never have to click more than more than 2 times to end up on any page of your entire website. So keep that in mind. You want to make your site as easy to use as possible. And you want to point them in the right direction. So obviously some of the things that we're trying to get here for somebody to do if they land on this site is to go to this web design worksheet, which this links to it, this links to it, this links to it. This one doesn't, I don't think. But you get the point. You want to point people in the right direction. Get them to where you want them to be. So I'm going to stop for a quick second. Give people on Facebook, I think we have a few viewers on there, time to ask any questions at all before I start going into off-page SEO and things that you can do there. So I don't think we have any questions, so I'm going to keep going. Chris, how you doing? Hanging in there?
Yeah, doing good. I just I'm taking all these things and plugging them into my WordPress, and then I got an F on my GT metrics for redirects.
Okay.
So,
Actually, when you bring that up, redirects, that's kind of another technical aspect that you want to make sure that you're covering. Is redirects on your site, and making sure that you don't have too many of them. Obviously, you're going to have a few. If you delete a page, you don't want that dead link sitting out there, so you want to direct them to where, let's say you had, I don't know, model photography page, and you didn't need that anymore because most of the traffic of your site was going through your fashion photography page anyways. So if you deleted the model photography, you would want to redirect them to the fashion photography page. That's perfectly acceptable. It's what you need to do. It's better than losing that person off your site for not accessing the information that they're trying to get to. Another thing with redirects is we use a plugin called Redirection. It's as simple as that. I think it's got over 4 million installs from WordPress. It's probably one of the more popular plugins out there. But there is an option on that plugin to actually record where your users are ending up on. I'm sorry, let me reword that. There's an option to record what URLs are causing 404 errors on your page. So a 404 error on your page is just someone trying to access a web page that doesn't exist. For example, this. I'm going to go to it. We redirect on this site to our home page. I'll go to our course vector one. This is a 404. So we just kind of say, hey, sorry you were unable to find the page you're looking for, but check out these, or contact us and we'll help you out. It's always good to have a 404 page on your site. But that gibberish URL that I tried to access, that's recorded. So if it is something, I don't know, I will go back to... So, like, for example, web hosting services, I'm going to just hit in. If I hit enter, that's not a page that exists on our site, but now that URL just got flagged on our redirection plugin as saying, hey, someone got a 404 error by getting to this page. So what I would do now is I would create a redirect from web hosting service, / web hosting services to our actual hosting page. So if anyone ever tried to access that other URL that doesn't exist anymore, they would get redirected here. It's just a way to keep people going to your website and finding out what they need quickly. Again, keeping user experience in mind. Did that help you out, Chris?
Yes, I'm slowly digesting all of this. This is good. Good info. Appreciate it.
Awesome. And I guess I'm going to go into the last section then, unless we have any. Andrea joined us from Facebook. Going to the last section here, and that will be the off-page SEO. So I just got done talking about all the things that you can do to your website, but there are things that you can do off your website as well that help out with your SEO and improving your rankings. The very first thing that I always recommend, about 95% of the time, is to make sure that you have a Google My Business listing, and use it and make sure that it's optimized correctly. And it's not difficult to optimize it. The biggest thing is just fill in all the information that you possibly can in that listing as you can. And what I mean by Google My Business is, so pressure washing services, for example, I'm just going to go to the maps. It's this. So this Pro Deck Wash Pro roof wash guy or girl is their Google My Business listing page. So they can be found easily. People can call directly from here. They don't even need to hit your site. But they can link, there's links to your site that are on here. Gives you the hours, etc. Reviews. Make sure that you review, or make sure that you get your customers to review you. The more interaction that Google sees with your Google My Business listings, the better off you'll be. The more that Google is going to show it to other people. Because obviously if there's people interacting with it, it must be a good listing. So there's that. So that's the first thing for off-page. Again, that's probably the most important. If you're going to take away anything from this entire session, take that away. Get your Google My Business running, especially if you're a local business. You're a landscaper, photographer. Even if you're selling, jewelry or little trinkets and stuff online, get your Google My Business up and running, because you never know what connections you might make with someone local that you can either network with or sell your product to, etc. So again, and I will kind of jump into the reviews and comment more on that, and reviews and citations. So what a citation is it's where your business lives on the internet, across different citation services. Yelp, TripAdvisor, Yellow Pages, White Pages. There's I could go on. There is a ton of them out there. You can pay services to do it for you. Spell it correctly. I'm getting MLA. Going back to college years. But there's, the Yelps, the TripAdvisors. I don't know. Anyone have any other ones that they can think of? I think there might be the Knot, if you're into wedding things. If you're a veteran-owned business, there's veteranownedbusiness.com. Yeah, veteranownedbusiness.com. There's a bunch of different ones out there. Get as many as you possibly can and get them all linking back to your website. And then get people to actually write reviews for you on those websites. Like I said, the more interaction that you have across the web with actual users commenting on your things, reviewing your products, reviewing your services, the better. Get people to, it's tough. It's really tough to get people to review. But it's something you have to convey at the, when you're done working with somebody or you're done selling somebody a product. Hey, I take, feedback very seriously. I want to improve my business. Any feedback that you'd be willing to share, I would highly appreciate it. It helps me with my business. It helps me get seen by other people. And it ultimately helps me improve my product. Let people know, give them that pitch anytime you get done talking with, you finish up working with somebody. That's something that, I'll be honest, we probably haven't done the best of, which we've been hitting hard really recently with our clients. We've been really asking, hey, if you like what we did, let us know. If you didn't like what we did, please let us know. It's you have to know how you're doing to get better and improve. Um, and the more, like I said, the more interaction that you get across the web, the better. So there's that. And that kind of rolls right into backlinking. Because the more that your website appears across the web, the better. Like I said, Google has crawlers that are constantly crawling the web, looking for links, looking for different websites to index into their huge database of services. So that's where those citations will help, because being listed on veteranownedbusiness.com, that's a backlink to your website. So what that means is that when Google is crawling veteranownedbusinesses.com and they come across your link to your site, they're going to say, okay, we should probably check out this one too. So the more that you have your site out there with backlinks, the better. Reach out to backlinking is very time consuming, but the value is huge. Reaching out to fellow peers in your field. If you're a a leather maker, for example, and you started making leather jewelry, you might want to reach out to somebody who sells jewelry and say, hey, I make this leather jewelry. I'd love for my product to be on your site, or whatever. Not even that. Just say, I'd love to be able to write about how great leather jewelry is on your website. I'd be willing to write you a free blog post as long as you can backlink people to my website. You're going to get shot down a lot. It's just the nature of the beast. But the more that you can get out there and the more that you can build relationships with people, the better. If you're a photographer and you specialize in sports photography, for example, but a great landscape photographer, which is something that you don't do, maybe find a way to collaborate with that person on a project. I don't know. Maybe there's a mountain in the background of a sport field. Who knows? But collaborate with somebody and say, hey, we can both put this content on both of our sites and link to each other. Let them know, hey, I wanna direct people to you. Would you mind doing the same for me? Build those relationships. That's why networking groups are important. For example, I'm part of a networking group. We meet every Friday. If you want more information on it, let me know. Via Facebook group that I'm in. And heck, I've networked with financial advisors and product, a promotional product. She puts like logos and things on promotional products. I've networked with these people, and I'm working on, hey, I'd love to be able to say how important, I on our the Course Vector logo design page, because we do logos occasionally. Hey, and if you're ever looking to get your logo on a promotional product, check out some of the different services that are out there, like company ABC, who does these great promotional products. That's a backlink. You got to build these relationships and tell them, I'll point people your way, do the same for me. And that brings us into press releases as well. These have been hit or miss, I'll be honest with you. But they are a great way to build backlinks for your websites. And that is to get a press release submitted into a press release service. Now, if you're going to do this, highly recommend actually having something newsworthy for your site. So, for example, if you're you're a local restaurant and you are giving free meals to those in need during this pandemic, that's a very good press release, and you can submit it through a press release service, or even directly reach out to some of the local news stations and say, hey, I'm doing this great thing, or I know of somebody who's doing this great thing. I'd love for you to be able to feature me on, or I'd love for you to write a story. I want to reach out to more people who need free meals. Um, I'd love to use, would you mind if you came out and did a story on me, and so that way I can reach reach more people in need. You know, you have to actually have something of value to those news outlets though, or they're never going to pick up your story. You can use a press release service and just submit it out there, um, which still can be good, because your local news station could pick those up. But unless you, like I said, I highly recommend reaching out directly to those local news stations, especially for your local company, and getting those press releases done. That's one more way to build backlinks. And I think that just about covers everything that I can think of for SEO off the top of my head. There's a ton more out there. But like I said, as long as you're keeping the end user in mind, I mean, yeah, there's certain things you have to comply with, for the crawlers to be able to effectively crawl your site. But as long as your end goal is to take that holistic approach and keep the end user in mind, make sure that user experience is the best for them, you will get ranked. And if you are ever in need of help, with tracking your rankings, just so you know exactly where you're doing, how you're working it out, feel free to reach out to us at CourseVector.com. We'd be more than happy to help. We actually offer free SEO analysis on websites, so we can run your website through that. Okay, and it looks like Chris asked about the Google My Business, about getting verified for Google My Business, other than the postcard. No, unfortunately, you kind of have to jump through a couple hoops to get Google My Business to get verified. It's to prevent fraud. It's to prevent someone from, I don't know, India, for example, to have to claim a website here in the States without an actual legitimate address. So that's Google's way of verifying. There might be other ways. I haven't come across them, any of them that are effective. The quickest way is to get the postcard up in the mail. It's a pain. It takes about 3 weeks for it to come in, but like 100% worth it once you do get that verified. It actually brings me up to my next point too. One thing I failed to mention during this entire thing was Google Search Console. Bing has tools out there too for this. I think Yahoo does as well. If you do not have your website linked up to Google Search Console, highly recommend doing that as well. It'll let you know what's wrong with your website if there's anything. It'll let you manually submit your sitemap into Google so they can crawl it, and get your site indexed quicker. If you make any major changes to your site, typically you might have to wait maybe a month, 3 months for Google to actually realize that there's changes made to your site. If you have an account with Google Search Console, you can actually go in and say, hey, recall my website, I made a bunch of huge changes, and they will. It could take anywhere from a week and it could be that day. But we recommend having this connected for sure. It'll also let you know if there's any technical aspects of your site that can be improved. And the biggest thing to keep in mind here too is if you play along with Google's products and services, they're trying to help you out in creating a better user experience. So if you comply with them, essentially you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. They want to send people to better user sites, and they want to help you with curating better user sites. So it's kind of along the lines of that. So does anyone have any questions on Facebook or Skype? Well, it doesn't look like it. All right. Well, I hope this has been a help to those of you who have attended. We will be running these virtual meetup groups about once a month, maybe once every 2 weeks during this whole pandemic when we're all stuck at home and bored. And if you ever do need help with SEO, like I said, we'd be more than happy to point you in the right direction and get you going with with an SEO analysis on your site. We also offer, for those do-it-yourselfers out there, we are putting together a do-it-yourself plan kind of with Course Vector here that we're going to be launching here, a new service for SEO here in the next week or two, where we will track all of your rankings, provide you with all the reports, kind of basically open up the whole toolbox that we have for you, and provide you with advice on how to improve the rankings and kind of do it yourself, especially during these times. And I'm sure some businesses I know are all sitting at home twiddling their thumbs looking for work. This is a great way to actually get your website seen, so when business does start kicking back up, you can hit the ground really running, because you'll be up there in the search results and people will be able to find you pretty easily. So more on that to come. Stay tuned to our website. If you're not already subscribed to the Course Vector newsletter, you can do so on coursevector.com. We do have we do only send out a newsletter once a month, and you can unsubscribe at any time. We're not obnoxious like some other email subscription services can get. So give us a shot there. Like I said, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to help you out, point in the right direction, and see how we can help you potentially gain more clients and improve your business. So with that, I'm going to close everything out. For those of you who have attended live, if you do want to re-watch this video, we will be posting it to YouTube in the next couple days to review. In case you're like, oh, I remembered he said something about schema back in that meetup group, but I can't remember what it was, and I want to make sure that I do this to my site. You can you can go back and reference that. And if you're looking for any other resources too, we have a great blog with a bunch of infographics and articles, and it's just under Course Vector and SEO. And you can see all the different. Heck, we have six pages of things that you can use of content that'll help you out.